All right, I'm here with the cigarette smoking man from X-Files, Mr. Jim So podcast, Just My Stupid Opinion. Great colleague to have on this wonderful adventure through bullshit. You know, the bullshit wonderland of MSNBC. And there was a video I uncovered a few months ago concerning MSNBC that pretty much shows that their approach to the news story of Russian interference in the election is largely guided by, trying to convince people that the scarecrow can actually move. That's basically their strategy. And this will authoritatively prove it. Because how do you do something so bad as analyzing an indictment of fake Russian trolls by engaging with somebody who complained about fake Russian trolls that wasn't even mentioned in the indictment at all? You know, the Robert Mueller already, this story was so fake that not even Robert Mueller included it in his fake indictment of some fake people. Adrian Lloyd, you have helped me with this project, and we are going to see now that Ari Melber is joining his buddy, his bro, Rachel Maddow, in engaging in this ridiculous charade of being a news outlet. Are you ready, sir?
I'm ready, and I just think it's funny, too, because it seems like MSNBC is doing absolutely everything to destroy its own credibility, so I'm enjoying watching their downfall. Let's get into it.
All right, I'm just going to message our friend Truth Seeker Jeff to tell him that we're on.
Alrighty. Sounds good. Yeah, no, this story has been unbelievable. Like, the way I've been sort of picturing it is it feels to me it's like Willy Wonka's river of chocolate, but instead of chocolate, it's just a river of bullshit, you know? Like, that's the point we're at. We're upstream in the river of bullshit right now.
Well, you know, there was a movie called Be Kind, Rewind a few years back where all these...
I actually watched it.
Yeah, do you remember that one where they accidentally erase all of these videotapes and they have to reenact all these movies?
Yeah, I do.
That's how... Yeah, that's how well put together these news stories are. Except, you know, there's a ton of people who actually believe this crap. So let's get going.
At least Be Kind Rewind had Jack Black in it, so it was actually kind of entertaining, you know? But these characters they have are just awful in this one.
And Mos Def.
And Mos Def, yeah, you're right. It actually wasn't a bad movie.
It was a great movie. I wish that was on MSNBC instead of this. Okay, I'm pressing play. You ready?
All right, let's do it.
For election interference is reverberating even on a night when there are new...
Hold on, my internet sucks, so I have to reload this. So starting from the beginning.
Dealing with this as well, but I want... is reverberating even on a night when there are new Mueller charges against Paul Manafort as well as this roiling gun debate. But Mueller's charges Friday didn't only upset Donald Trump. They're also stoking an important conversation among Democrats. Some say it's long overdue. And there's new
word from
Bernie Sanders tonight who's striking a different tone than he did in his very
You're not going to be able to hear it anyway because...
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, that's why I sent you the link.
Yeah, that's right. Okay, I'll have to pull that up. Sorry about that, everyone. That's my bad.
I'll send you the link.
I kind of forgot about that. I've got it right here still. I got the Discord open.
Oh, okay. 1 second. Wait, where's my chat?
Are we starting from the very beginning or the... I know you marked it at 5:21. Are we starting there or are we starting at the beginning?
We're starting at the beginning.
Okay.
1 second.
Everyone can blame me for that. That was all my fault.
Oh, here we go. John Sislowski is joining from the great Kingdom of Thailand. And he's joining us in the Kingdom of Lies today. So, welcome, John, and Arjun Senior.
Arjun, how you doing, buddy?
He says Mazel Tov. Thank you very much. By the way, my best friend from middle school got married today. And meanwhile, we're wading through media garbage. So, you know, hopefully it's all worth it. So I couldn't be there because I couldn't afford the ticket. All right. Let's start from the beginning.
For election interference is reverberating even on a night when there are new Mueller charges against Paul Manafort as well as this roiling gun debate. But Mueller's charges Friday didn't only upset Donald Trump. They're also stoking an important conversation among Democrats. Some say it's long overdue. And there's new words from Bernie Sanders tonight, who's striking a different tone than he did in his very first interviews after Mueller indicted the Russians last week, when Sanders said this was basically old news and the real question was what Clinton did.
Mueller mentioned me twice, our campaign, twice in his report. And I think what he was talking about is kind of old news. It's what most Americans know.
If you and your campaign knew that there was Russian meddling and that it was trying to sow divisions, why not take that directly to your supporters?
I would say that the real question to be asked is what was the Clinton campaign? They had more information about this than we did.
Sanders initially.
All right, so pause at 58 seconds. Basically, Bernie said something that was, I mean, how do you not understand how simple it is? This had nothing to do with my campaign. It happened later. Why should I care? And plus, the Clintons knew more about this than I did. All right, we're going to press play again.
All right. Initially deflecting to the Clinton campaign, which is absurd. These reports are about interference that hurt Clinton and, of course, boosted the other candidates, Sanders and Trump. Now, there is more. Sanders is revising his stance.
So notice what he said there. Minute and 11 seconds. Pause it. So Armin Melber is saying it boosted the other candidates, including Sanders and Trump. But Sanders had already withdrawn when John Mattis's stuff had happened. Now, they don't explicitly say that this has to do with John Mattis, but just keep watching the video, and you kind of wonder exactly how they connect anything that they're talking about with it's basically like putting together a sandbox with pieces of gravel. Trying to make a sandbox with pieces of gravel. It doesn't make any sense. No kids play in a gravel box.
Well, you had a better childhood than I did.
Fairly unusual 370-word statement to the media, and he said that Russians deserve unconditional condemnation, whether it was the active support of any candidate or active opposition to any candidate. And he adds, this is true of any of the 2016 campaigns, including my own. That was new last night. It's because he came under fire for the initial response.
Oh, man, this is really freezing up on me. So I'm paused at a minute 33. Hold on.
Okay. Yeah, giving you some problems there.
Yeah, the internet's like really shitting the bed on me here. So
dealing with this, it was the active support of any candidate or active
seconds.
Opposition to any candidate, and he
give me
adds,
1 second to get
this
there.
is true of
All right, I'm ready.
any of the 2016 campaigns, including my own. That was new last night. It's because he came under fire for the initial response, along with Sanders' former campaign manager, Jeff Weaver, who said that the factual underpinning of Mueller's indictment is what? Zero, adding, I have not seen any evidence of support from the Russians for Bernie Sanders. Now think about it. That's not a Kellyanne Conway quote. It's a Sanders strategist refuting the evidence that Bob Mueller just offered. And there's more. On the beat, we have invited Sanders and Weaver on the show. Now, they're not here tonight, but Weaver did give us a new statement tonight saying, quote, it's important that we fully understand how we can stop Russian meddling from happening again. And he adds, and this is important, I'm thankful for the work Robert Mueller is doing to accomplish just that. Now, we also had a former Sanders campaign staffer in the know on this week, a digital director who condemned Russia and said that the Sanders campaign still had this legitimate right to respond to the DNC emails, even if they came from Russia's criminal hacking.
There's no doubt that what Russia did in terms of meddling with our election is, totally horrible. I do think there are legitimate frustrations that Bernie supporters had with the way that the primary was handled. I don't think those become illegitimate because the source of the leaks was Russia.
And let's be clear, that's a reasonable view a lot of people support. Important information being used regardless of where it came from. Journalists certainly think that. But the civic question here is broader than relitigating any primary. Imagine a key moment in, say, a future
So pause it at 3 minutes, exactly 3 minutes.
Okay.
All right. What he just did is a complete and total deception to the viewer. So originally, we're talking about, in the Mueller indictment, we're not talking about hacking any email. We're not talking about Russian, actual hacking of election machines, nothing like that, nothing of the kind. The Mueller indictment specifically talks, Perseus Gold is like distracting me, but in any case,
I saw that.
The issue is that the Mueller indictment doesn't deal with any direct hacking or direct interference in the election. It deals with a number of parties that attempted to, compel people to vote, either not vote for Hillary Clinton, vote for somebody else. And some of them were, of course, supporting, either Sanders or Stein or Donald Trump or whatever. But it has nothing to do with the WikiLeaks. It has nothing to do with the DNC emails. Nothing at all. And Melber deflects that because obviously the person who was, you don't see in the other frame, in the previous part where you saw that guy, hold on. Digital director. You don't see the question that was posed to him. Okay, so essentially the problem is that they asked him a question that has nothing to do with the topic that Ari Melber is talking about. Ari Melber is talking about the Russian troll farms and that aspect of the interference. He's not talking about the WikiLeaks. He's not talking about the hacking of the emails. As I think it was Leonard said, the DNC has never forwarded any information to the DOJ that would reveal whether the DNC was hacked or not. That was, I think that company's name was CrowdStrike, if I'm not mistaken. So CrowdStrike, which was the internet security company that the DNC contracted, they were the only people relied upon to assert that there was a hack taking place, but they never produced any evidence of it. The DNC servers were never examined by the FBI, and they still have not been subpoenaed by the FBI under the Trump administration. So this is a failure on the part of the Trump administration to forcibly subpoena the DNC to put this forward. Let me see here. Leonard McGriddle also said, what Bernie said was also a fact. The best smoking gun evidence hasn't been released by DNC. I forgot the name. Those servers logs are now deleted. Then Perseus Gold says, I, Perseus Gold, who thinks genocide on a massive scale is an inevitability, support Bold Like a Leopard and his channel. He had no way of telling me I couldn't support him. Okay, so he was using some sort of analogy. He said it's a very weird analogy, but I understand what he means. That essentially they're trying to paint Bernie Sanders as having benefited from Russian help that he never solicited and he never was conscious of. So you can't blame Bernie Sanders for it. And by the way, I mean, every time we deal with this topic, I have to emphasize I would never have voted for Bernie Sanders, but he's right in this case. Adrian also is Canadian. He could not have voted for Bernie Sanders. So we don't have an interest, a private or personal interest in Bernie Sanders being vindicated for this because, I personally think he can kick rocks. I despise him, but I'm not going to smear his character based on something that has nothing to do with what actually happened in the election. So back to 3 minutes. You ready to go?
All right, ready.
I don't know if this is ready to go. Hold on. It's giving me the wheel. Still giving me the wheel. This is unbelievable, man.
Doesn't want you.
Yeah, it hasn't been this bad in a while.
The Google overlords don't want you to report.
What do we do?
Right.
Say a
right, ready?
campaign, a big convention, or right before Election Day. Imagine Russia unleashes an even larger set of hacks and information warfare. And what do we do about it? Well, that's what reportedly happened right before the May 2017 French election. But leaders there across the spectrum vowed not to fall into another trap of letting Russian material dominate their democracy. The media didn't even report on it. It's part of that country's somewhat odd blackout rules. Donald Trump recently suggested America should copy.
So 3 minutes and 29 seconds, they want us to basically copy the French approach which would have been, an abridgment of freedom of speech. By the way, they don't have freedom of speech in France, for those of you that don't know that.
Actually, it's much rarer in countries than people think. Technically, Canada doesn't either. It's covered underneath freedom of expression, which is a much more vague term. But if I'm remembering correctly, what ended up happening during the French election, wasn't that released by WikiLeaks?
I don't think that anything had to do with Russia with any of these. I mean, some the things that have been proven to be associated with Russia are, they're kind of a joke every single time. And we'll look at the indictment briefly. There's really, I mean, the indictment everybody's acknowledged is a gigantic parody of the system of justice in America, that you would indict people for basically putting messages and paying for Facebook ads. But we'll keep going because we have to examine this entire segment. And then, in France, it might have been WikiLeaks. In this case, they're talking about, what exactly they go from hacking, which is not mentioned in the indictment, to WikiLeaks, to leaks, to what? To trolls? What exactly is going on here? All right.
Who the hell knows?
Yeah,
well, the thing is, too, is if it was WikiLeaks, these people were totally cool with WikiLeaks when it was supporting the positions that they wanted. For instance, when the whole Edward Snowden thing came out. But then now apparently he's just colluding with Russia. So it's just a little ridiculous how fast they will quickly turn and go the opposite way whenever it doesn't fit the narrative.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, 329?
329.
Copy France's approach to military parades. Tonight, some Americans concerned about Russian interference are questioning whether we should copy France's approach to combating Russian hacks. I'm joined now by Philippe Reines, a longtime advisor to Hillary Clinton, as well as John Mattis. He worked as a volunteer in California for Bernie Sanders' campaign and was one of the first people to both suspect and flag this foreign interference. John, tell us briefly what you found and what you did.
Well, starting in August 2016, I saw suspicious people joining the Sanders campaign after it was over. So people were flocking to Facebook pages from Eastern
Europe. So here we go. This is 4 minutes and 12 seconds, and you see John Mattis, who is the subject of our fearless investigator, the investigator. By the way, I still have not come to the conclusion yet that some writer that I see on Medium might be him, but there seem to be a few signs that it could be him. Anyway, this guy who is, none of his stuff is mentioned in the indictment. I'm going to just put it out there, but they bring him in anyway. And it says former volunteer organizer of the Bernie Sanders campaign. That's also not true. He hosted some watch parties is the extent to which I know that he was involved, according to most of the people that have spoken to us about this. All right, press play.
Okay.
Europe, and it made no sense. Why would you join a campaign that was fully over? So I began looking into those people. It turned out to be ghosts, bots, or trolls. And then I started looking at where their information was coming from, and it was from a number of Eastern European news sites that it all popped up at the same time. We're not talking one or two sites. We're talking 50, 60 sites that out of the blue start broadcasting incredible amount of disinformation.
And what'd you do?
24/7. What I do is I started looking at it to see if it was a phenomenon that was just in Southern California,
no, but I mean,
just in our region.
I'm trying to drive you forward.
See, this is not how you interview somebody. They have coached him. You can see him looking off to the right. Did you see that, Adrian?
Yeah, I noticed that a few times for sure.
So I think he's getting cues off camera, and Ari Melber is prompting him. This is a pretty sinister freeze frame of Ari Melber looking. I mean, it just looks like, Lucifer or something. And he's pretty much prompting him. This isn't the way. Maybe it's because the segment had to be short, or maybe it's. But I believe that they had already coached him on how to talk about his story, because the story itself is basically irrelevant. But they try to push forward the point that they wanted people to understand from it. All right, press play, 4 minutes and 52 seconds.
Okay.
Contacted the Clinton campaign?
Oh, yes. In September and October, I contacted the Clinton campaign. I shared my investigation with them on a daily basis up through the election.
Okay, there he admits it. Okay, 5 minutes and 6 seconds. However, he admits the wrong thing, because as Adrian spoke to him on the phone and as he admitted, he was not in contact with the campaign itself. He was in contact with American Bridge 21st Century, which is a super PAC. And when you contact a super PAC, by law, they're not allowed to have direct communication with the campaign. So if he wants to make the point that, and he's tried to make the point in other interviews with Politico's Edward Isaacs de Devere, and you can see that in the Mattis file write-up that I did. It should be in the description of this video that we're making right now, today. So he actually tries to make the point that by communicating with David Brock's organization, he was essentially communicating with Hillary Clinton and her campaign. Well, so you're trying to say that you were complicit in a federal election crime? Is that what you're trying to say? That you are aware that you're committing a federal election commission offense, FEC offense? Is that what you're trying to say? This is a major allegation that he's making without even knowing it. Let me see if anybody in the chat has anything to say about that. Yeah, Len McCarthy here. Welcome back. And Gabriel Swift. I don't think I mentioned him before. But this guy is essentially admitting to monitoring a Bernie Sanders Facebook group on behalf of the Clinton campaign on a daily basis up until the election day. You ready to go? 5 minutes and 6 seconds.
Well, the other thing was, too, is funny. Even though the Sanders campaign was done, the one thing that Mattis has never said before is that he never really tried to get in contact with Bernie Sanders or his campaign directly, which was, even at the beginning of this video, they were saying that whenever something like this happens, you should be trying to get in contact with their supporters and the people involved in the campaign. So I just find it funny that the first people he goes running to is the opposition. And he also goes running to, which he didn't mention in this video, was that he went running to Obama and his head of national security. So he really was not going through the proper channels in order to get this information out. And
that's a good point. That the Obama thing he mentioned several times, and I don't remember if he mentions it later in this video. But what you're saying about him, why didn't he point and call, let's say the old Bernie Sanders district area manager or whatever, which he never mentions that ever. The California Bernie Sanders campaign, never, not even once. It's ridiculous. It doesn't make any sense.
And even the administrators that we spoke to from the same Facebook group, it's not like he ever tried to get in contact with them about the situation. They confronted him about what he was saying rather than the other way around, which again is something you think he would bring to their attention. But he didn't end up doing that. He just goes running off to the opposition once again, which is fueling why I believe that he was actually more of a mole in the Bernie Sanders campaign than an actual supporter of Bernie Sanders.
Oh, this video it makes it seem almost impossible that he was a real supporter of Bernie Sanders at all, because you'll see who he's talking to soon. Okay, 5 minutes and 6 seconds. Let's play.
All right.
Which is an important point. Philippe, you were very high up in the Clinton campaign. I want to stipulate, for the sake of accuracy and fairness, a lot of people contact presidential campaigns. I'm not reporting this, Philippe, to suggest that everything that came in should have been immediately dealt with. And the Obama administration had trouble dealing with this as well. But I wonder what you think, Philippe, of what we heard, at least initially and over the course of this week, from Bernie Sanders.
Well, just listening to John, I think, John had all this information, and I don't know why Bernie Sanders doesn't blame John. Apparently, he didn't do enough. But what's preposterous about what Sanders has said is that it acts like we were too lazy to do something or we didn't care. I mean, you're predicating that accusation on the idea that Hillary Clinton just didn't feel like being president, as opposed to being accused every other day of wanting nothing more than being minded about being president. So I
pause at 5 minutes and 59 seconds.
All
so right. This is Philippe Reines, who's been Hillary Clinton's personal, I think he was her personal spokesperson for a long time, a senior advisor when she was at the State Department. And, he's basically been kind of her fixer. And there's all of these indications here that he's basically been her attack dog when the media comes knocking at her door. I've seen him go on, I believe it was not Kelly File, but one of those other shows on Fox. It might have been the Laura Ingraham show, but I honestly don't remember. And this is a guy. He is basically the biggest apologist for Hillary Clinton. Apparently, he's also declared to run against Bernie Sanders in 2018 this year against him in Vermont. And
as a senator?
Yeah,
you mean?
And he doesn't live in Vermont, so I think it might have just been a troll joke, but it's a pretty weak joke because, of course, with all due respect, I don't like Bernie Sanders. I think that nobody in Vermont is going to vote for anybody like Philippe Reines, who's basically, he's a bag of skin with crap inside of it. This guy has basically lied throughout his career on behalf of Hillary Clinton from the Benghazi days. And I'll tell you what, for John Mattis to agree to be on the show with somebody like this who says, well, it seems like they're trying to predicate on the fact that Hillary Clinton didn't want to be president or whatever, and she didn't try hard enough. Well, the fact of the matter is that Bernie Sanders was not aware of this information because John Mattis didn't take it to Bernie Sanders. And also, if you want to blame anybody, yes, he delivered that information, and if he was in daily contact with the Clinton campaign, then why did they not do literally anything about it? Okay, they themselves could have reported it to the National Security Council or whoever. We're also aware that there were a lot of people who endorsed Hillary Clinton who are former intelligence community members. Okay, the former head of the CIA, I forgot what his name was. He endorsed Hillary Clinton. And a lot of other Bush era officials endorsed Hillary Clinton. She was the most military industrial complex supported candidate in years. Okay, and that includes Republican candidates. So yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say the other thing is I don't know how they can say that she didn't try hard enough to try and be president. She limited debates, she rigged the questioning, she kicked out the media, and she set up white noise machines to talk to her private donors. I mean, she did everything she could to try and steal that election. It just didn't end up working this time. So that's just a ridiculous thing to even say.
Well, the other thing is that people have made the case, she didn't try hard at what mattered, which was to actually go and campaign in battleground states. And people knew this during the primary campaign when, Bernie Sanders was basically burning up and, no pun intended, feel the burn, but he was really, I mean, you could watch his rallies, and you don't have to be a fan of Bernie Sanders to understand that people did like his campaign. He would go to states like, Kentucky and real out of the way places, and just crowds would show up, and he would fill entire arenas. He was the I would still maintain he would have lost to Donald Trump, and most people on the progressive side would say that, oh, you're just because you're biased. No, I still think he would have lost because I think he would have lost the debates, and that he's a strategic idiot. He doesn't know how to strategize about anything. He's been a failure at strategizing, and the past couple years are proof of that. But that was a person who knew how to campaign. Hillary Clinton relied on the bias of the DNC and the bias of the media to shield her from. And by the way, also the what's been revealed to be the basic lack of ethics within the intelligence community in order to help her get a clear path to the election, and she still lost. So I would make the argument, yeah, she probably didn't want to be president enough to win, because the people who did try, one of them was Bernie Sanders, who she screwed out of the candidacy in many ways. We'll never know if the primary process was fair. And the other person was Donald Trump, who basically outsmarted her. Play at 5 minutes, 59 seconds.
I think the problem is, and you hit the nail on the head, is if you close your eyes and you listen or you read, it's hard to read with the eyes closed, but if you look at what they're saying, it is not good for it to be indistinguishable between what Donald Trump says and what Bernie Sanders says about Russia.
You think that what Bernie said after the Friday indictment is equal to what Donald Trump's done?
I think, you can fill in the blank. X benefited from Vladimir Putin's meddling. X calls the election rigged. X resists sanctions. X hedges on what happened now.
Are you alleging? Hold on, you know this.
So pause it at 6 minutes and 39 seconds. Somebody who would have been a Bernie Sanders supporter would have clearly objected to this, and even John Mattis, given his story, let's not talk about motives here, but let's assume at face value that his story is true. He would have said, look, that's not what because the campaign was over. He didn't actually benefit from this aid from Russian trolls because Bernie Sanders' campaign had been discontinued, and the nomination had been delivered to Hillary Clinton. So he didn't benefit in any way from this story at all. But rather than challenge Philip Reigns, which he, it's not like he has to throw like a glass of water at him I don't know if they're in the same room, but he all he has to do is object and say, look, what you're saying is a gross exaggeration of even my story, because the fact of the matter is that Bernie Sanders did not benefit directly from this Russian interference, because as a matter of fact, what I noticed happened months after the primary election ended. You ready to go? It's 6 minutes and 39 seconds.
All right.
This is part of my job. Are you alleging, yes or no, that Bernie Sanders' sanctions position is because he was helped by Russia?
I'm not, but I want to know why he is being so wishy-washy about what's going on. And I can answer the question. It's the same thing as Donald Trump. It's that it puts their own accomplishments in doubt. I don't blame them, but the problem is when Hillary...
Okay, 7 minutes and 3 seconds. He's saying their unwillingness to confront Russia by imposing sanctions is due to their insecurity over the fact that they won something that he considers through ill-gotten gains. Now, I want people to understand basically what this. Actually, I don't think people can actually see me. Let me see here. I think that whole window thing didn't work. 1 second.
I see the video. I see a picture, but I don't see you.
Yeah, I guess that because on OBS there's this thing where you can share a window. So sorry, everybody. I know you couldn't see us before, but actually no. Maybe we'll apologize to you now because now you have to look at our ugly faces. But in any case, this guy made like the biggest conflation of different things that you could, because he's saying, well, because they won't acknowledge that Russia helped them in the election, they're trying to deflate the whole sanctions business. Whether they're saying either support sanctions or admit that you are a tool of Russia. Well, Bernie Sanders did not defeat Hillary Clinton in Wisconsin because of Russia. It had nothing to do with it. Bernie Sanders didn't defeat her in Michigan because of Russia, or in any of those other states that don't really have that. I mean, for example, he won in Wyoming, and in Wyoming, the Democratic Party is basically, the size of, a high school band. They don't have much. I think the last time the Democrats won in Wyoming during a presidential election was in 1964. So Bernie Sanders won that state. And therefore, one of the things that Hillary Clinton supporters will yell at Bernie Sanders supporters is, well, you won all the states that are white and where there's no Democrats. Well, I mean, isn't the whole point to attract voters from states that normally don't vote Democrat anyway? Isn't that the idea behind running a successful campaign? So that it makes the Hillary Clinton defense for her failure during the primaries in many of these states that doesn't make any sense at all. All right, so 7 minutes and 3 seconds.
Cool.
Hillary Clinton says Russia meddled and might have cost her 70,000 votes out of 130 million cast, the Bernie people say, oh, that's crazy, she's a terrible candidate. He lost by nearly 4 million votes out of 29 million cast. And you know what they blame? Oh, rig, the DNC stole our homework. So
let me get John in. John, response?
First off, this is not a blame game. We were all victims of a Russian attack. It was an attack on our democracy. So to blame Bernie Sanders or to blame he or she, again, it's not the blame game. It's about what happened and how we would respond. None of us in the fall of 2016 knew what a cyber attack really was. None of us knew how to deal with cyber terrorism, and that's exactly what was happening to us.
Philippe?
So that's 7 minutes and 57 seconds. That's his defense of Bernie Sanders. It's one of the weakest I've ever seen, because he's saying, oh, don't play the blame game against us. Well, no. If you were really a Bernie Sanders supporter, you would have asserted, in point of fact, the evidence has revealed that, yes, Bernie Sanders was screwed in the primary process. And it cannot be emphasized enough that you're talking about a person who claimed to have been a Bernie Sanders supporter saying, well, let's not play the blame game here, lay off of old Bernie or whatever. Well, when you have somebody who's on TV, whose express purpose is to go out and attack the candidate that you claim to have worked for over something that that he personally had no direct engagement with, no direct contact with, then I think you have to put forward a more forceful defense and say, look, this is not about smearing one candidate as having colluded with Russia and benefited from Russia or whatever. I mean, how about all the times that we have indicated that the Hillary Clinton campaign or Bill Clinton himself over the years has benefited from China, for decades has benefited from China. There's actual documented money changing hands with regards to Bill Clinton and China. So this person, John Mattis, goes ahead and his best defense is, well, at the time, none of us really knew what a cyber attack was. So let's not fight each other. Let's all, basically the whole, can't we all just get along line? That doesn't make any sense. Because in reality, Bernie Sanders had no complicity in any sort of Russian-related crime during the 2016 election. There's no proof of it. And then I'll show you the indictment in a second. We only have about 1 minute and 20 seconds left. You ready to go, Jimso?
It was what, 7:57?
7:57.
Okay.
What is your final thought then on what happens next time? Because the convention was, as we've reported, and people can now see clear in hindsight, not maybe as clear at the time, it was exactly what Vladimir Putin wanted, was Democrats fighting Democrats at the most high-profile moment of the general election.
Well, there are two people who can't see that clearly, even in hindsight. What Sanders and his campaign manager, Jeff Weaver, said were in light of the Mueller indictment. In terms of looking forward, I think it starts with everyone admitting this happened. Everyone has to say, I could be next time. I wasn't last time, but I may be the next time, and we have to stop this. And that starts with cutting out this nonsense about, oh, they didn't hurt me, they didn't help me. There are facts.
Right.
They are facts. Accept them until we all do.
It's fascinating. I got to fit in a break. As I mentioned, I want to be clear, and I appreciate both of you having the conversation. We invited Senator Sanders, Jeff Weaver, Tad Devine, all on. Some of them have been in touch. The invite remains open because
I'm sure they'll issue 7 more statements before we get off the air.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC.
So at the end of that segment, you don't see at all. I mean, you see Chris Hayes' nerdy face, but you don't see any comment from John Mattis, maybe because he knew that they were going to a break. But he doesn't object to what Philippe Reines says. And in fact, what he should have said during the entire time is, the indictment mentions nothing about anything that I was talking about. the indictment is irrelevant to the San Diego Bernie Sanders groups. The San Diego Berniecrats group is what it's called, which he was, he was a member of, was never an administrator of. He never articulates that point. And, you can look through this indictment. The word Sanders, the name Sanders, is only mentioned 2 times. Okay, by 2016, defendants and their co-conspirators used their fictitious online personas to interfere with the 2016 U.S. presidential election. They engaged in operations primarily intended to communicate derogatory information about Hillary Clinton, to denigrate other candidates such as Ted Cruz and Marco Rubio. So I don't understand why there's a distinction between derogatory information about Hillary Clinton and denigrating Ted Cruz and Marco Rubio. Because it seems to me they would be the same thing, but they put her on a higher pedestal than them. Not that anybody gives a shit about Marco Rubio anyway. And Marco Rubio has never alleged that his campaign was torpedoed by Russia, right? Nobody except for Hillary Clinton complains about that. None of the other not Rand Paul, not what's the other guy, Ben Carson, who else? That guy that looks like a marshmallow. Chris Christie, there's nobody. Jeb Bush doesn't even allege it. Only Hillary Clinton, the Queen Hydra, seems to care that a bunch of fake people that nobody ever listened to bought a few ads and said that she smells like cabbage and old mattresses. So I don't understand why people can't just cut through the bullshit. But again, this is the MSNBC audience. So I'm gonna I'm gonna show you. This is this is page 17 of the indictment. This is the only place where Bernie Sanders is even mentioned here at all. Nothing else. Let's look for just Bernie. Again, nothing. And that's it. and in fact, most of the messages here are, from Trumpsters United. There's a lot of stuff here. Let me see. Generic anti-Hillary stuff from April 2016 through October 2016. Staging U.S. political rallies. So there was a March for Trump Twitter account, and that was about it. They tried to contact a volunteer for the Trump campaign in New York, and the volunteer agreed to provide signs for the March for Trump rally. But if anybody who contacts a campaign headquarters and asks for signs, asks to help nobody's going to ask them, wait a second, do you work for Vladimir Putin? Does that sound very logical to anybody here? How about you, Adrian? If somebody called a campaign office and a candidate was asked, can we have some of your signs to use for a rally? What do you think that they would answer?
Like for a rally of support, you mean?
Yeah.
They would give it to them then, because it would give them the advertisement that they wanted.
Yeah, that would be, it would be the most logical thing here. There was
another.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, nothing. I was just agreeing. I was like, yeah, exactly.
So, there was another issue where they were talking about, let me see here. Now, they do go into wire fraud or whatever for the Internet Research Agency, because I believe, here it is, to knowingly having devised and intend to devise a scheme and artifice to defraud and to obtain money and property by means of false and fraudulent pretenses, representations, and promises transmit and cause be transmitted by means of wire communications in interstate and foreign commerce, writing, signs, signals, pictures, and sounds for the purposes of executing such scheme and artifice in violation of Title 18 U.S. Code, Section 1343, and to knowingly execute and attempt to execute a scheme and artifice to defraud a federally insured financial institution. So I don't know if they're going to be able to prove that. Let me see here. Yeah, there's virtually no... Okay, here we go. On or about June 24th, 2016, defendants and their co-conspirators purchased advertisements on Facebook to promote the Support Hillary, Save American Muslims rally. Do you understand that part of the indictment is trying to say that they purchased advertisements to promote the Support Hillary, Save American Muslims rally? So they're trying to hurt Hillary by buying ads to support Hillary, right? Does anybody think that's? I mean, so I'm trying to hurt you by helping you. On or about July 5th, 2016, defendants and their co-conspirators ordered posters for the Support Hillary, Save American Muslims rally. So they actually bought posters, including the poster with the quote attributed to Clinton that read, "I think Sharia law will be a powerful new direction of freedom." So, this is a pro. So, first of all, how is that hurting Hillary? What they would have to say is, well, it's trying to whip up anti-Muslim sentiment by attaching Hillary Clinton to her. Well, then what are you trying to say? That Hillary Clinton has a negative stigma? That Muslims have a negative stigma? How is that how can you substantiate this accusation? You're basically relying on allegations that these are subliminal messages to anti-Hillary Islamophobic people that would, attack. They would see this and say, well, she's supported by Muslims, I'm not going to support her. That's not anything. That's not a crime. None of that is a crime. Using even this convoluted messaging issue is not a crime. There's nothing in here that, except for that wire fraud stuff, that could be construed as a crime. There was some destruction of evidence stuff, but again, none of it mentions Bernie Sanders at all, except the offhand remark that these people were trying to support Sanders to the expense of Rubio, Cruz, and Hillary Clinton. So that's it. And I have the indictment in the description if anybody wants to if you found something that I didn't, you can go ahead and email me. My email is in the description now for the channel, chefleopardyt@gmail.com. I think we're ready to wrap up unless you have anything else to say, Jim So?
Not really, no. No, it's pretty much, I think we pretty much covered everything that we had to say on the matter, and just going over the whole Mattis more or less himself. Again, the more he talks, the more he tends to shoot himself in the foot. So it's really just funny to let him do it to himself.
Well, he shoots himself in the foot for people who have already discovered what this is about. But the majority of people will watch his segment, and I think we can agree that it will slip their mind because there's so much crap floating through the ether of the airwaves or whatever that people don't notice anymore. It all sounds the same. So nobody examines the fact that MSNBC featured a person who, first of all, his own story is complete nonsense if you actually examine it. And second of all, they're tying it to an indictment that has zero tangential connection to anything here. It's not even, it's not direct, and it's not tangential, and it's not even reflected off of a fucking mirror in a funhouse. There's no connection at all. It's like, why would you even have him? Because he happens to have been talking about cybercrime, and so does this indictment. So what? I mean, are you going to have on for a segment about the O.J. Simpson murder? Are you going to have somebody from, are you going to have, Lorena Bobbitt, the woman who cut off her husband's wing in 1992? Because those are both crimes. So are you going to, is a panel just people, find everybody who had a BLT sandwich today. We'll have one person who ate a BLT sandwich on the bus and another person who ate it over by the train station. And that's a connection. That's a coherent enough panel. That's what MSNBC, that's their quality of work. And that's about it. Just My Stupid Opinion has the full interview with Hard Bastard on his YouTube channel. That's Just My Stupid Opinion on YouTube. The Hard Bastard has that on his BitChute channel. I think that's the link that I have below in the description. And we're going to continue to follow this story. And there are other investigations we're doing not related to this. If you do want us to look into a specific, we're not going to investigate, chemtrails, because, I don't have a weather balloon, man. I can't get up there. But if you do have something you want us to investigate, you can email me. But we're not going to investigate, why your ex-wife is stealing your recycling and cashing in on it. That's about it. Just My Stupid Opinion, where can they find you?
You can just find me on YouTube at Just My Stupid Opinion, or on BitChute at the same name. And then you can find me just all around the social media sites. Find me on Twitter, Minds, Steemit. If you just you look up at JMSO Podcast.
All right, I'm going to give a shout out to the people who tuned in. There's Leonard McGriddle, Augusto Pinochet, Perseus Gold. I didn't get to read any of your comments, man. I know you're a real comment hawk. Larry Gerke, always great to have him. Arjun Sinha. Who else? Was Jeffrey here? Gabriel Swift.
I don't know.
Yeah, you guys have to start sharing the other links. So get other people involved in this. I've been getting a lot more attention on Reddit. I've also been using a number of other forums, and hopefully in the near future there will be other people taking an interest in this story, because you do realize that it's not just MSNBC. There are a number of media outlets that are complicit in this whole charade. It's a hoax. It's one of the, once this gets exposed, there are a number of people who should be fired. Okay, and that should be apparent once people get through the details of this nonsense. So that's about it. Please subscribe, comment, share, and like the video, and check out Adrian's channel, and I'll talk to you guys later.
Thanks for having me on, Bold.
Good night.